We begin tonight with one of the most emotional days in court our team here at KTVB has covered. This afternoon, Timmy Kinner, the man who admitted to a deadly stabbing rampage at a 3-year-old's birthday party in Boise, was sentenced to life in prison. There is no possibility of parole for him. Tonight, we have the powerful testimony and images from the 6-hour hearing, including the emotional outburst from the victim's mother that got her removed from court, along with reaction from our refugee community who has been helping the victims since the night of the attack. No video was allowed inside the courtroom, only photographs. Kinner admitted to first-degree murder and 11 other counts, including aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and use of a deadly weapon. That plea deal a few months ago spared him the death penalty for killing 3-year-old Ruya Kadir and stabbing 9 others, including 6 children. 3-year-old Ruya was Kinner's youngest victim. She died during the bloody rampage at her own birthday party. At the hearing today, her mother, Batufa Kadir, threw a metal water bottle and a tissue box at Kinner, questioned why he attacked her young daughter, and said she wished Kinner had killed her instead. Kadir testified that she had gone inside to get the birthday cake when another child ran inside crying, but she couldn't understand. At first, she said she thought 2 men had gotten into a fight. Then she realized what had happened was far worse. Kadir says she saw her own daughter stabbed, laying by the door. She said that she tried to close her daughter's eyes, not wanting to see her open-eyed. And then she says she ran, saying she couldn't rescue her. Ruya's mother also vowed to outlive Kinner, go to where he is buried, and spit on his grave. But then she said that will not bring her daughter back. Kadir's emotional outburst in court came as prosecutors described what happened that night. They said Kinner pursued his victims as they ran away. They said he even hid behind a curtain and leapt at them. At some point, he came upon Ruya, who was sitting outside waiting for her mom to bring her a slice of her birthday cake. Prosecutors said Kinner picked her up, stabbed her in the heart, and then threw her to the ground. When Ruya's mom heard that account in court, she threw a metal water bottle at Kinner and then rushed towards him, screaming as courtroom marshals struggled to hold her back. She also threw a tissue box at Kinner and was pulled from the courtroom screaming her daughter's name. Our Katie Terhune was in court today for this sentencing and saw all of that happen, all of that unfold. Katie, I think any mom watching tonight would probably have done the same thing if she had to sit there in court and listen to such horrific details about her daughter's death and then to be in the same room with the man who did it.
Absolutely, Kim, and it had been very quiet in there. You could hear people crying softly. What happened when she threw the bottle was the prosecutor was speaking, kind of going through a timeline of who was stabbed when. And when he got to the point that he was talking about her daughter, she sort of erupted and she came up out of her chair and she threw this metal water bottle all the way across the room. She was sitting on the complete opposite side as Timmy Kinner. It crashed into this wood paneling very near him, and they kind of hustled him out of there. And she just sort of broke down in tears and had to be kind of restrained by the bailiffs and some of the security in the courtroom. They almost pulled her to the ground because she was still trying to rush at him. She was trying to get to him as they pulled him out of the room. She threw another, like a Kleenex tissue box towards him, and then all the bailiffs and all the security were sort of on her, trying to pull her to the ground, trying to pull her out of the room to kind of stop the scene.
You were live tweeting during the proceedings, and a testimony from Ruya's mom that really hit me hard. You tweeted this, that Ruya loved to read, that was mentioned in court today, and that she loved to comb her mom's hair, but now Ruya's mom keeps her hair short because she just can't bear the thought of not having Ruya with her.
And you know, these two were refugees from Ethiopia, so Ruya's mother talked a lot about how she wanted a better life for her daughter, a safe life, a happy life. She even went into some of her own pain as a child. She left her own family very young, had to work, didn't really get to go to school, and she said something that really struck me. She was like, my daughter was going to go to school, my daughter was going to dance. And so she just wanted something of her life that she didn't get in her own, and then to see it end at 3 is awful.
Tragic. It's so heartbreaking. And then she mentioned that she goes to the cemetery every morning and every night because she feels like if she didn't, that she would lose touch with her daughter.
She doesn't want her daughter to think that she's forgetting what happened or that time cures that pain, because it doesn't, and that was clear today. I mean, she was as emotional today as if it was happening that moment. I mean, she was like screaming on the floor of the courtroom. She was crying. She was calling out her daughter's name.
Oh.
It was completely apparent how much she misses her.
Of course, of course. And then again, so much happened today in court that you saw firsthand. You also listened to the first 911 call that came in that night, made from an 8-year-old boy who was at that birthday party and stabbed himself.
But that was really striking, because it's one thing to hear somebody say, this person this age was stabbed, this person was hurt in this way. In the background of this 911 call, you can hear screaming, you can hear crying. At one point, he breaks down and he's telling the dispatcher, I'm scared, I want my mom. Where are you guys? Are you coming? He's still here. And it's heartbreaking to hear the fear in his voice, knowing that this is a seriously injured little boy who's just seen members of his family really badly injured, other children severely injured, and one of them even killed. So it really puts into perspective the terror that he was going through in that moment.
That night in June of 2018, when word got out what had happened, a lot of people thought they were targeted because of the color of their skin, because of their religion. It later came out that that was not the case, that this birthday party was randomly targeted by Timmy Kinner. A lot was mentioned today about his mental health, about his criminal background, and that finally kind of gives us a little bit of insight into perhaps maybe why this happened.
And the defense team talked about that. He was diagnosed as schizophrenic, he was diagnosed bipolar. Sounds like had a very troubled childhood himself, just really a bad background, was abandoned as a child. It seems like grew up in a pretty neglectful home, but also was showing some signs of pretty severe mental illness very, very young. So I think this is a case where I don't think he was targeting that family in particular, that group in particular. I think he's a deeply troubled, mentally ill man.
Just real quick, I'm just curious, in court, did Timmy Kinner have any reaction, Katie? Did he seem remorseful at all when he heard Ruya's mom talk, or when he heard the 911 call? Did he seem like he was sorry?
In his statement, he said that he was sorry. He said he wished he could take it all back, that's not truly who he was. But from what I saw, I mean, I didn't see a lot of reaction from him, even during the very emotional parts, like the 911 call, her mother speaking. A lot of the times when the victims would speak, he would look down at the table and not look at them. So it's hard to know what's in his heart, but I didn't see any outward signs of him being truly sorry about it.
All right, well, Katie, thank you so much. And if you want to read more of Katie's firsthand account today from court, just go to her Twitter account. Very detailed. It's as if you were in court yourself. Katie, thank you so much. We continue our coverage now with our Tristan Lewis. He has reaction from the refugee community.
Well, we understand that there's continued healing to be done, and we know that today was a very difficult day.
The Idaho Office of Refugees says they are thankful there is some closure after Timmy Kinner's sentencing Thursday. Kinner stabbed 6 children and 3 adults, including 3-year-old Ruya Kadir on June 30th, 2018. Ruya later died from her injuries.
We know that their loss is not gone.
All of the victims were refugees who fled areas in the Middle East. The office has been there to support the community, especially in these difficult last 3 years.
That feeling of care has not gone away, and we will continue to be there and stand in solidarity with them.
While Thursday's court proceedings may offer the community some peace, the office says there is still grief that needs to be worked through.
And as a community, we really want the survivors to know that we pull together and really stand with them.
The office hopes to continue seeing support from the entire Boise community to honor Ruya and her family, just like they did nearly 3 years ago.
This is still a caring and welcoming community and a safe place to be.
Now, police have said they do not believe the mass stabbing was motivated by the victim's status as refugees. Again, they were all from the Middle East. The Idaho Office of Refugees, again, they want to say anyone impacted has support at their office and encourage people to reach out. They offer a space to grieve. More now on the suspect. Timmy Kinner has no ties to the area. He came to Boise from Los Angeles. He was staying with a resident at the Wiley Street Station Apartments when the rampage occurred. The attack happened just a few doors down from where he was staying. In court today, the defense said Kinner has had schizophrenia since he was 7 years old. They said he was upset because he couldn't get his belongings out of the woman's apartment and that sent him over the edge. On the stand, Kinner says he lost his mind and his life all because of a few minutes and one bad day. He said he was confused that night. He wasn't thinking clear and said, quote, "I wasn't in control." Former Boise Police Chief Bill Bones says the attack in 2018 was unlike anything he'd ever seen.
The faces of the parents struggling, the tears coming down their faces. The faces of the children in the hospital beds will be something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, as will every first responder that was there last night.
Today, we also learned more about Kinner's criminal past. It's a lengthy one. He's been in and out of jail, including slashing his cousin with a knife. The prosecutor says he also shot someone during a robbery and tried to slash another inmate with a razor. At one point, this was when he was in California before he came to Boise, Kinner was involuntarily committed after police determined that he was a danger to himself and to others. He was supposed to get psychiatric medication upon his discharge, but never received them. You can read much more about this case right now on KTVB.com. Our Katie Trehune, who you heard from just a few minutes ago, she has a very emotional and powerful story recapping all of today's events at the sentencing hearing. Again, it's on our website right now at KTVB.com. Again, Timmy Kinner will spend the rest of his life in prison. It is justice and perhaps the beginning of some closure for the victims and their families, and for this community who was gripped by the gruesome and devastating crime 3 years ago. Tonight, our thoughts and prayers for everyone affected by this tragedy as we remember 3-year-old Ruya Kadir, the little girl whose mother just couldn't wait for her to go to school and to learn to dance.